In our last video, we laid out how WALL-E demonstrates each side of its argument. We see through WALL-E what it looks like to be motivated by love, and we see from everyone else what it looks like to be motivated by someone else's directive. Ultimately looking at Otto and how he puts people in danger to purely uphold his directive.
It's imperative that we're like WALL-E. We can't have pre-programmed responses, minimalize how important something is to protect our vulnerability, or look to others to know what to like. We need to find out what's important to us and why, and then share it with others. It's how mass change happens. It's how we see each other and be seen. It's how we find common goal. Be a full person first, driven by a longing to connect, and then vulnerably share in order to connect.
We can't be guarded, or we will create tensions. Can't be prone to want to fit in by accepting axioms that others want us to. Signaling to each other, causing stasis, rather than vulnerably advocate for truth. We need to do what we believe and not assume someone else will do it. And if we do follow unquestioned axioms, which we do, we first need to do the work to be open to seeing ourselves as we are, instead of the character we want to see ourselves as, and vulnerably ask why we do what we do. And only then can we change.
Directive.
Again, the character of change communicates the story's claim, which is expressed by a character who begins a story by living out a harmful worldview, but then changes to a more beneficial one.
This is what people are referring to when they talk about the writing technique of finding what your character needs. Like, for instance, if you have a selfish character, what they need to learn is empathy. So in that story, the theme would be proving that selfishness doesn't help humans survive, that empathy is needed.
What a character believes at the beginning of the story is the side of the argument that's being proven wrong, and what they need is what the author is trying to prove is better.
Eve and the captain are the main characters that we see this change, and to a lesser extent, Mary, John, and Mo.
Although Eve is shown to enjoy and experience freedom, she only does so after the other robots are gone. As far as her priorities are concerned, under the eye of others, there is a way to act that isn't questioned. If she doesn't comply to her directive, she's then sent to the repair ward. So, in order to fit into the status quo, like the humans, she just does her day-to-day without questioning or exploring other potential goals.
Speaking of the malfunctioning robots in the ward, the ideas that they express is a pattern that I've noticed in watching these three films, which all cover similar ideas in their theme. These stories express where goals should come from, and that we should act from a place of self-authorship first.
The weird pattern is that these stories positively uphold the delinquent and the outcast. In Shawshank, Andy is straight his whole life, but then becomes a criminal once he's in prison. In Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Ferris lies, the valet guys steal the car for a joyride, and a drug addict is who shows Jeannie she can make decisions for herself instead of focusing on her brother.
Similarly, the defunct robots are expressing a freedom from their directive. The thing that's confusing is how they're expressing their autonomy is in weird and potentially harmful ways. Like the tennis ball robot flinging tennis balls across the room, or the massage robot like just being really overly aggressive. But even though they're malfunctioning, Stanton doesn't say they're broken, because they're never fixed. They're redeemed as they are. As far as the story is concerned, it's celebrating that these robots aren't adhering to the status quo. They're exploring their autonomy, just doing it weirdly because they don't have a greater goal other than defying the norm.
Like Charlie Sheen's character in Ferris Bueller, he's free, not focusing on what others expect of him or acting from fear. He's expressing his autonomy, just in a physically and psychologically harmful way. This celebration of the defiant seems to be advocating for a life motivated by a greater, self-authored goal.
Take one of my favorite scenes.
I didn't know we had a pool.
No splashing, no diving. No splashing.
To follow a directive without question is assuming that someone else knows what's in your best interest, that following their rule is a greater good. Splashing must be bad for you and humanity. But in this moment, John and Mary have a greater perspective and goal. The growth of their relationship is a bigger and better goal than the danger of splashing or the respect of the lifeguard robot. It's such an interesting stance to take because it is showing a lack of respect for someone else's wants, showing that an authoritative figure's black and white rules aren't always what's best, that pros and cons should be weighed and considered. It's not saying be defiant for the sake of being defiant. It's asking what is most important in context of the situation.
For John and Mary, they've just adhered to the flow their entire lives. They could just follow the rules and leave the pool area. Date is over, and any more wonder and play would just come to a halt. Or they don't see the harm in continuing the moment and actually see a potentially more meaningful outcome if they do.
This is everything that the movie is saying. Don't just follow a rule because it exists. Think about it. And if you really believe in something that also happens to defy someone else's rules, do what you love.
We see this again when Otto tells the captain to go to bed. But then the captain does the equivalent of the kid staying up late reading under sheets with a flashlight. Learning about Earth is way better than going to bed early to avoid being groggy in the morning. He's unconsciously weighing outcomes. He's saying the discomfort he'll experience in the morning is worth doing what he loves. Something that will finally bring everyone together for the common goal of growing with each other is better than getting his recommended amount of sleep.
This is what Eve and Wally bring to the defunct robots, a goal they can believe in. Like the drug addict and Ferris Bueller, they don't want to mindlessly follow the rules, but they don't have a better goal to go towards. So they end up exploring actions that are socially defiant rather than transcendent, having a purpose regardless of the social current rather than in spite of the social current.
Which is what happens to Eve, the captain, Mo, John, and Mary. Throughout the story, they are given the opportunity to follow more meaningful goals than that of their directive.
As shown earlier, Eve denies Wally's vulnerable expressions because of her
directive.
It's not until she wakes up and sees Wally's unconditional love for her that she decides what she cares about. Telling Wally that their relationship is her new directive, that's more important than getting the plant to the thing.
A funny and interesting note is that Wally and Eve don't really care about humanity going back home. The only reason that they go through with getting the plant to the deck thingy is because they understand that they'll go back to Earth where Wally's replacement parts are. Both are wholly motivated by their love for each other, which is contagious.
I think that this is the second most important point that the movie makes. The ripple effect that happens when someone does what they love. Wally is the reason that all of these characters break out of their autopilot, which wasn't even his goal. He treats people as if they're unique and have value by making it a point to see them. But ultimately, he interacts with all these characters only because he's following what he loves.
He's ignorant of following the lines, so he just heads toward his goal, causing Mo to jump off his line immediately after the filmmakers just showed him refusing to move on without them. Wally stops what he's doing to help John. He stops Mary to ask if he can be closer to Eve. He inspires the captain to look into the Earth. He shows Eve that there's more to life than what other people told her to do. Like we've said, that's the Blight Spirit. One who does what they believe and follows what they love. And that creates a ripple for those who want to be free themselves, who want to truly live.
What I want to make clear is that this film isn't a cautionary tale. Stanton's goal isn't to show us what life would be if we consume mindlessly. His goal is to speak to us now. We do follow a cliche path that is laid out before us without really thinking what is important to do in life. We do follow trends without really thinking why. We do need to think deeper than it's just cool. No, it's just cute. It's cool and cute because you like something it represents, be it acceptance, stability, nostalgia, or something deeper. What do you love? What is important about life to you from your perspective? And then ask why 5 times. These are really hard questions to answer and require going into really scary places in your mind, but needed. I hard believe in the captain's response here.
Rather than try and fix this problem, it'll just be easier for everyone to remain in space.
Easier?
Autopilot is easier. It is more comfortable. It is less painful. But if we want to truly live, Stanton says we need to stand up on our own 2 feet and turn ourselves back to manual. So Wally's a dope film, obviously. Don't be a robot.
I said that.
Yeah, I know, but you weren't talking, so I
Don't
thought
be
I'd fill the silence.
a line-following robot. If you want to be a robot,
You have to be a cute one.
you have to be a cute, defunct robot.
Please tell us what you think in the comments. And
Talk to us on Discord, too.
yeah, for more, I like to try to have more in-depth conversation there, so, and I respond more there because it seems easier.
I'm not really on it that much, but I pop
Why
in
not?
every once in a while. It's overwhelming. I've never used Discord until Critical Hit. If you find this content valuable, if you appreciate it, please support us on Patreon so that we can keep doing this every 3 weeks. Bye.
Bye. This video was produced by Frozen Was Actually Genius. Connor Fitzer, David M., Matt Laskowski, Uncle Doug and Aunt Dee Dee, Rachel Steven, Caitlin Taylor, Miley Greenwell, Scott Zenteno, Richard Roberts, and Pickle Princess. Thanks, guys.